This is a difficult one for me to talk about. As Claudio said, it's attempts on her life. I'll explain that cryptic title in a minute. And I've been back and forward. So I'm going to take you through a project which was partially successful and partially not successful, and look at what worked and what didn't. The final clip I'm going to show, I will warn you in advance, does feature some really, really, really strong language, and I emphasize some really, really, really strong language. Quick little clip at the start of what I'm going to be talking about. So, you see me, I'm on a screen. This plays into the narrative because I have COVID at this point, so I'm on Zoom, so COVID gets very much involved in this piece. A quick little sample of what happened. This is an image. I don't know if anyone knows what this image is of, but if you've watched the sitcom Friends, this is Rachel's trifle. And the character of Rachel tries to make trifle, but the pages get stuck together, so she makes half shepherd's pie. As you notice, there's a layer of beef sautéed with peas and onions in the middle of it. And this is, I'm going to return back to this metaphor for trifle. I think when you do any form of collaboration, but especially an international collaboration, people need to agree on what it is they're trying to make. And if there is a lack of communication or a gap in communication, you kind of will end up with something resembling Rachel's trifle. Which Joey actually liked in Friends. So basically, so my background is I teach at Coventry University. Back in 2016, myself and some colleagues at the University of Tampere wanted to do some Shakespeare together. We weren't into telemetrics or telepresence in any way. We just wanted to do some Shakespeare. We stumbled down this rabbit hole, and we ended up with this kind of rehearsal system that we needed full body view, we needed eye contact. We started with Skype, we ended up with this, and then we came to Network Performing Arts in Copenhagen, and that's when we started to learn how to use these systems. So the people at Network Performing Arts very much have been my tutors and my guides through this technology. That's the project timeline of what we've been doing so far. So we've worked mainly with Finland, but we've also worked with Helsinki, Gothenburg, Poznan, Purdue in the US. Obviously with COVID, we didn't do anything at all. And we're working with Florida International University in January. And we don't know quite, we know when we're doing something, we don't know quite what we're doing yet. We used to use Polycom H323, and then we switched to Nimbra, so that's what we were using for Godot online. So we've got the Nimbra in the corner, Blackmagic Studio Pro, low latency, so all kinds of wires and gadgets, much superior system to the Polycom. So when we were planning this, we were planning to use the Nimbra, we were planning to do something with music, but what happened, and members of the organizing committee will know what happened. Matthias, who was our kind of Nimbra guru in Tampere, got a new job in charge of the live streaming for the ice hockey in the new arena in Tampere. Absolute dream job for him. But that left us very last minute with no one who could operate a Nimbra on that side. So we had to fall back to what was easy and what works fine, which is Polycom. And then we also lost Mikko. There were three of us, Mikko, Tina, and myself, and we lost Mikko, who now heads up the City Theatre in Tampere, and so we lost another team member. So, already things were starting to fall apart slightly. And we got a new member of staff called Davida who came there. He wasn't familiar with the system. I think it was kind of forced on him, slightly against his will. And then we reached a sticking point over what text we were going to do. So we were stalled for months. Usually the first thing we decide on is when we're going to do something. That's usually the first thing is the scheduling. And then we've always found that choosing the text, because it's a rehearsal process, it's not so much about performance, but about rehearsal. We ended up getting stuck on the choice of play, and we ended up going in a loop. But the change of technology meant also a change in text. So we looked at a play called Attempts in Her Life by Martin Crimp, which was written in the late 1990s, a British playwright. It's a play about mediatization and identity. I'll talk a little more about it. This is the system that we use, or the setup that we use: rear projection screen, flush to the floor to give the impression of a continuous space for the performers, to give the illusion of eye contact. Camera at waist level, which we found is the kind of most effective level for that in terms of eye contact. It's doing very strange.
Can you put the charger on? It's maybe...
Okay. It's taking too much power. Okay. We're back. Come on. Turn it off and turn it on again, always. We're back. Okay. So anyway, very exciting image of a blank screen. A lot of it is kind of bodged together. We use traditional stage weights, etc., to get it flush to the floor. Lots of cable ties. And the microphones are used to mic up the room as if it's a real space. So the further you are from the screen, the louder you have to be. We want to create the illusion of a single rehearsal space. So Attempts itself is a really experimental text. There are no characters, and there's no indication of who should even speak in this text. It's about a character called Anne, or Anushka, or Annie, who is completely absent throughout the entire play. She doesn't appear. There are 17 different scenarios in it. We looked at 7. And it's a really political play. It was written as a response to genocide in the Balkan states. It was written, so it deals with things like sexual exploitation, refugees, terrorism, genocide. It's a really strong political piece of work. Reflecting on it, I think maybe I thought something very different about the play than the other side. So I think I was trying to make a different piece of work. We use Facebook as well, so that's kind of a little post from Facebook. So we use a 3-room system, meant to mirror a real rehearsal process. So big main space. Facebook is very much the notice board, so it's where we put things, where we exchange images, where we can talk about the schedule. And we used Adobe Connect in the very beginning, but for the past few years, we've been using Zoom for the students to have their own spaces to run lines, develop ideas, bring ideas into the room. And I created kind of little handouts, because I was aware how daunting this play would be for students when they first looked at the script and they went, hang on, what am I playing? There are no characters. What is going on in this play? So I kind of created a little, not so much like an academic guide, but some just ideas about the hyperreal and mediatization and what the play was trying to say. This is Crimp's opening direction, a company of actors whose composition should reflect the composition of the world beyond the theatre. And he says it's not a conventional play. It's a play that should be different every time it's staged. There are no stage directions. There is nothing to indicate how you should tackle this play. And this is what the script looks like. So, you know, it doesn't even, it resembles more prose than a conventional script. I had to translate it into something we actually could use. So I had to kind of edit it. C3 is the 3rd actor in Coventry, so we kind of broke it down into Coventry 1, Coventry 2, Coventry 3, Temporary 1, Temporary 2, Temporary 3. So we had this text, which was quite experimental, and then the first disaster happened, which the head of department at Temporary hadn't communicated that she had booked a trip for 6 of the students to Copenhagen in the 2nd week, and hadn't even told the Temporary staff in the 2nd week of term of our project. So we knew 2 weeks beforehand we were going to lose half our actors midway through. So we had to reconfigure the script again to work for 2 actors and then 1 actor. And then Paulina, who's the head of department, contracted COVID, which meant that Tina, the other tutor on the Temporary side, now had to go to Copenhagen with the students. So now we were in, now everything was kind of changing and we hadn't even stepped into the rehearsal room yet. This was the opening greet with the students.
It's me and Jama Jama from Easy. Jama Jama.
Is it? So on both sides, actors were continuously coming down with COVID. So
high tech meets low tech.
I'm trying to be very upbeat at that point. It's the first day.
Do you want to tell yourself or do
Is there any? I can't hear you.
I don't know. That's... Hey, we did actually hear that.
So on both sides, actors were continuously coming in and out and texting me going, I've still got a faint line. And of course, on the second last day, this happens to me. So I go in really early in the morning to power up all the equipment before the students take a test, discover, and I hadn't been feeling well, discover now that I'm positive. So I took lots of pictures of how to switch on the system, wiped everything down with disinfectant and drove back home and left this cryptic Facebook post for the students. So I actually missed the last 2 days myself. And the cast was completely, continuously morphing. Students were coming back from having been ill. Students were off who'd rehearsed the whole thing. So the whole thing was this continuous, but I'm going to show you some fun stuff, highlights. So we have what we call purposeful play. So these are just some students trying to pass an orange to each other. No reason. They just wanted to see if they could do it. Now you'll see from the other side why they went,
but we don't see it appear, so. So, Tom, try throwing at the same time as he does and see what happens.
So they're trying to work with some latency here as well. Yeah, so that's the play. We also had slightly purposeless play. So we had this one session where the students weren't allowed to talk to each other. They could only communicate by mobile phones. It really puzzled the students. And of course, the room was too small anyway, so they could all hear each other anyway. So students are meant to give each other instructions via the mobile. And so you can see with Isabella, Isabella is completely confused as to what's going on there. So an experiment, but not a particularly successful experiment. And yeah, this is so the person sitting at the back in temporary is issuing instructions to Isabella on our side, and then there's someone sitting at the back issuing instructions to the temporary actor. But it didn't work. The students didn't really understand why they were doing it. So although it was interesting, it was purposeless. So now I'm going to show you two things that I do think work. So this is the slightly mild version. So we had a multinational, multilingual cast. So we had the Finns on the Finnish side, but on my side we had Lithuanian, Romanian, Polish, Portuguese, Hong Kong, Korean, Turkish, and English in the cast. So in fact, the smallest group were actually the English. Oh, Erasmus, how I miss those days. We decided to use a lot of different language. So this is from one of the stronger pieces in the play called Porno, in which someone reads a list of the benefits of pornography, but it becomes very apparent that these words are not her own. It's really more about coercion, and she's been translated into the languages that the cast on our side speak. We should be able to hear some. Oh, yeah.
She enjoys her work. She enjoys her work.
She enjoys her work. She enjoys her work.
Podoba jej się jej praca.
She is young and fit and happy with her body.
Güçlü, mutlu ve vücuduyla aşırı derecede mutlu.
And what she does with her body is her decision.
Și ce face cu corpul ei este decizia ei.
Porno doesn't stop her from leading a normal life.
Porno onu normal bir hayat yaşamaktan mahrum bırakmaz.
She has a regular boyfriend.
Normal bir erkek arkadaşı var.
And all the normal interests of a girl her age.
I wszystkie normalne zainteresowania dziewczyny w jej wieku.
Clothes.
Ubrania.
Boys.
Los chicos.
Makeup, pets.
So that's a sample of porn. How much time do I have left, Claudio? 5. I'll show you 5 minutes of this. This is the scene that I'm giving out the government health warning. So this scene is Strangely, and it deals with refugees. So it's a woman fleeing a war-torn country in a car and being stopped by the occupying forces. I think the strong language is quite justified, but this is what we did with this scene. And then I'll conclude on this. I'll show you just 5 minutes. So.
What?
She's driving away from the bombed-out city in a metallic red Cadillac Circa, 1956.
Nay! When she reached a checkpoint lit by burning tires, and I asked exactly for her name.
Strangely
enough, she doesn't respond to this reasonable request, but begins instead a tirade of foul-mouthed abuse. You motherfucking shit-faced murderers! She says. You pig-fucking cock-sucking bastards!
Language! Your sister fucking blaspheming, child-murdering, mindless, fuck-faced killers!
Language!
Shit on your graves and on the graves of your mothers and fathers!
Identity! Anchors of future generations.
Oh, it's gone. But that gives you a flavour anyway. I'll stop on that. But it's got a really chilling last line because the character of Anne Anushka keeps on morphing, and she has 2 refuse sacks in the bags in the back of the car, and the last line is, and no one asks why her daughter is in 2 refuge sacks instead of 1. So it's a very chilling piece of theatre. It was partially successful. We had good moments, we had bad moments. As you could even see on the screen, one of the Finnish actors has a script in his hand because literally he had to replace the actor from the day before who had also then got COVID. So there was, it was dealing with all kinds of circumstances, poor communication on both sides, and COVID, and the madness that we've been through the last few years. So that's me.
Questions for Tom? Yeah, Jill. Wait,
hello?
Streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, do the students have any contact with one another outside the rehearsal space? So do you encourage them to get in touch via Zoom or anything else? Or
Very much so. I mean, I think, to me, that's actually more fun than what we do. They work on Zoom. We have Facebook as well. They add each other as friends. But, of course, they're actors and they're students, so they'll do things like they'll go for beers. I mean, for me, one of the problems with remote rehearsal, and also we've noticed this with remote conferences, is there's no coffee break. There's no... If you're trying to build a team in 2 countries, it's difficult to kind of have that social aspect where, you know, people can learn about each other. When we were doing King Lear a couple of years ago, one of the Finnish students played the saxophone for our students from his room, and they had a sing-along over Zoom, well, as badly as it. But I noticed a difference in the rehearsal room after 3 or 4 days. In the first day, they're very camera shy. When they finish the scene, they'll step out of shot. By day 3, I'm shoving them out of shot to get the next group in because they want to talk to their friends, and they find going back to Zoom a little bit limiting because their friends are full-sized and embodied. So they find the experience of kind of going back to their bedrooms and being on a laptop a little bit limiting when they can. And now we leave it on for lunch and stuff, so they have their lunch breaks together. It's just turned on all day, so they can just use it how they will. In fact, this year we gave them a day where we didn't go in at all. We just left them to it. And I think they got a lot of work done that day. I think, actually, I really hate to say this, I think they got more done without us there. Putting myself out of a job, but...
Hey, Tom, David from Memphis. I've always appreciated and learned a lot from your sort of staging, the way you've sort of done this. I think there's a lot for us to learn even in the music sphere about how to do rehearsals with the way you have the screens and camera set up. And I may be super picky, but I wanted to ask a question. In an earlier part of your presentation, you had a clip where one, I don't know which group it was, but had a mirror in the back,
yes,
and it was so. Was that purposeful? Everything seems purposeful when you do it, or was it just an accident?
We discovered there was a mirror in both studios because they were former dance studios. So we opened the mirrors on both sides just to see what happened. The same play came about with the students and their camera torches. They wanted to play with that. At even one point, I mean, it's all very basic. It's not. You know, we're using very high-tech equipment, but there's a lot of just play. A student came down with lots of lighting gels and just wanted to see what would happen if he put them in front of the camera. And so there was a little bit of play. At one point, someone was using their mobile phone for music and feeding it down to the other side. So there's a real mix of high-tech and low-tech. But for me, the most important thing is the play, is letting the students never say no, is always kind of my thing. And even if I think it's an idea that's not going to work, I won't say no, because I don't know what's going to come out of that idea. And the students haven't done it. It's the first time for them. I've been doing it since 2016. So I think, you know, we just say yes in that room, and I think that was a happy accident that we kept.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always appreciated the sort of the experimentation part of it that you allow for that. It's less about the piece than it is about the possibility. So,
any further question? I don't see any.
I shall
So
run
thanks,
away,
Tom,
then.
again.
Thank you.